coming in. Yeah, flex, I just wanna win. Yeah, LABB, who we running with. Yeah, 2233, I'm on 10 again.
This won't ever happen again in our lifetime. And that's what I think that we're all here for, is to make a real impact and make change, and actually have the ability to be a part of that process. So we're just ready to be a part of it.
Thank you, Kevin. So before we open up to questions, I'm going to ask a few questions of my own. So as a business journalist for my entire career, the reason I decided to start focusing on the cannabis industry, quite frankly, is because the newspaper industry is hurting, and this is one of the fastest growing industries in the nation and the world, I might add. So, but at the same time, the legalized cannabis industry, while it's one of the hottest industries since the dot-com era, still a lot of people back then made a lot of investments that they probably shouldn't have made, right? You know, a lot of it was based on hype and not solid strategies. And so I'm going to ask each of our panelists, or any of them want to weigh on this. Would any of you care to offer a tip to any possible investors? You know, instead of, you know, and what I mean by that is that, you know, you still, any business, I don't really care what industry it is, it boils down to the people, it boils down to the competition, it boils down to some basic solid business strategies.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of this. All right, well, just to be honest with you, Larry and myself, we are heavily involved in the public sector now within the cannabis industry. We've been in the business so long now that we always say we don't really care necessarily what's going on inside of our facilities anymore. We just care that they're compliant at this point. And what I mean by saying that is someone like Erik, he will be able to tell you the same thing. But a company like his, guys like us, we would come in and we would make an offer to Erik. Like, Erik, come partner with us. We want to be a part of what you're doing, but more or less, we want you to be a part of what we're doing. We're growing, we're publicly traded. We're an opportunity for you to kind of be able to sit back and grow with us. And those are the companies who are going out there and gobbling up other smaller companies and other strong cannabis companies in different markets and whatnot. Those are the companies that you want to look at investing in, okay? Because the way that they're doing it, every time they make an acquisition, their stock will jump. If they announce that they're going to make an acquisition, 9 times out of 10, their stock is going to take a good jump. And if you're investing or you're looking at penny stocks or you're looking at stocks that are trading at $1 or $2 or anything like that, it's important for you to know exactly what's going on with that particular company or that brand that you've invested in. Know what they're acquiring, understand what their strategies are, understand why they're going into a different market. Are they involved with Canada? What's going on in Canada? A lot of that stuff is something that some of you guys may not fully be looking at right now, but it's important for you to take a peek at those small things as well when you're deciding which companies you're going to ride with. It's important. But the stocks are small now, but some of them, if you look at some of the other guys, the bigger names out there, they've ballooned. I mean, they're doing fantastic. But don't be afraid of the little guys either, because they're going to do well in most cases. As the country moves along that way, you're going to see those companies are going to do well also. So it's a strong opportunity, a strong time, and a good time for you to invest some money in some of these stocks after you do your research, though.
Great, thank you.
I'll just pile on that. A little. I agree with what Donnie said there, and I think investing in cannabis is more similar to investing in other businesses than it is dissimilar. I mean, you're betting on the teams. You have to understand the valuation of the investment that you're making, and you have to do your research. I mean, this is, as Marcia said, there's a lot of excitement around here, and there are a lot of parallels to the dot-com bubble. And you can remember there was a lot of bloodletting for some really poor investments around that time. It's a really bright light, and it attracts all sorts of folks. And so you got to be really careful about where you're putting your money, and you do that research. But then in the end, you really are betting on the teams to execute on good plans. And the good news is, if you get a good team that has a good plan, there really is a big tailwind in this industry. You know, we're in the first or second inning of growth here, and I think if you take a long-term time horizon and you know what you're investing in, there are quite a few opportunities. But you got to do the work.
What I would say is at the ground level, he hit the nail on the head. Understand who you're investing in is probably the most important thing. So understand what that team looks like, understand their growth strategy, understand how they intend to execute. When we hear about a lot of investments that have gone wrong, 9 times out of 10, that group overpromised or sold a dream that they couldn't deliver on.
Right.
And so understanding the difference between actually having a tangible investment, meaning that they have licensing already and they're just looking for build out, as opposed to they're going after licensing. You know, understanding what the difference in that is, because there's a much higher risk level behind going after licensing as opposed to having the licenses and just moving forward. But yeah, just the team really is the big thing for when we're looking at an investment. Do they have a large backer? You know, is there a proven track record of success in other states or areas that you can look at and say, okay, this really does have legs to move forward?
Thank you.
I'd like to touch on a little bit about when we think about investing. I think right away we think about stocks, we think about capital investments, you know, and things of that sort into organizations or percentages. But investment is also in the layers, you know, because everyone in this room, you know, is at a different pace, right? In the sense of where you are, in the sense of your understanding of finances and what it takes to make a risk on an investment. And also, I want you guys to look at what does it take to invest in yourself and some of the other opportunities. Because investment, yes, is being able to be in a position to say, okay, what does the stock look like? Investing in the stock market, investing on these businesses and watching them grow. But how does it look to be able to invest in yourself and the skill sets that you have to be able to niche out a space in the industry, right? So the one thing that I say about investment is not to limit yourself. But as everyone said, the biggest thing is about educating yourself and networking with people. Because there's a big thing that always goes on, and sometimes, you know, when you're trying to go after something, you kind of isolate yourself in the process and the growth. And the biggest thing that's going to happen is being able to connect with people that are able to guide you through the process and really show you doors and opportunities that are actually available for you to be able to take advantage of, especially when you're thinking about getting involved and investing in companies that are on the precipice of maybe going and taking that leap. And when we see these great people making all these money, when you're buying something at 13 cents and then selling it at a couple $100s, when you're looking at that type of investment. But that's going to come from investing in yourself and saying that you're going to now take the time to educate yourself and be prepared for opportunities and network with people and continue to, what I always say, speak about this industry in the light. We don't have to be in the dark anymore. So don't be afraid to be confident about what you want to go ahead and speak about when it comes to the industry and bring it to the table. Because if you do that, you're only taking away investment opportunities from yourself. So again, it's definitely so many opportunities from the business, so many small businesses that are growing are going to do some great things. When you're thinking about the upward mobility of the industry in itself and what's going to continue to happen, we can't really foresee because again, it's, you know, we're so early in the stages, but understanding that you're going to have to make that investment in yourself and that commitment of accountability to where you're going to do the work of what it takes to educate yourself and put yourself in a position for opportunities because they are here. It's just, will you be prepared for them?
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to weigh in? All right, cool. So I'm looking at this audience, and even though we have these guys up here who have tons of knowledge and a lot to offer, the fact is any one of you could be in this industry if you chose to. And so anybody who knows me knows that I'm all about reinvention. Another reason I love and the reason I'm attracted to this industry because everybody's reinventing. You started as a financial advisor, right? What did you start out as, Donnie?
Man, I own a bunch of businesses.
Small business owners?
Yeah,
What?
nightclubs, restaurants, all kind of stuff.
Nightclubs, restaurants, and how about you, Erik?
Finance industry.
Finance industry? Farmer?
Farming, computers, jack of all trades.
Right, marketing? Right, so the fact is, any of you guys could be in it. So here's my thing. So I had a column for 10 years at the Plain Dealer called My Biggest Mistake and How I Fixed It, aimed at small business owners. And I also did a series on reinvention. So with that background, I'm kind of really all about like, why reinvent the wheel? Ask people like you who know something, who have tried something, everything's not gonna work. Some things fail and they get back up and they try it again. So I'm gonna ask you guys, can each of you offer one challenge and one benefit in your experience of deciding to invest in this industry in any way? A challenge and a benefit of.
So I think a challenge is the biggest challenge that I face in my area, especially being and dealing with a lot of the public relations side, is expanding the brand of the school and how we're perceived is the perception of the industry and the lack of education that people have and understanding. So I think that's the biggest challenge, and I think it's eerily similar. The perception of the industry. So
Okay.
who's
So
going to
that's
be
a big challenge.
Correct. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, just for me in the sense that
The
I feel-
negativity?
Yeah, of other people.
Okay.
You know what I mean, and their perception, because again, their perception is how they're going to treat me, the access that they're going to provide me, the access they're going to provide my company, etc. Within that, and I think it's very eerily similar to the journey of an entrepreneur of hearing no. So you hear no, you got to hear no and get back up and make a yes. And it's very similar. So for me, it was one of those spaces like, all right, just another no, we're going to turn some yeses. So I think for me, and what's always driven me is that how do I overcome that? So, and I think that challenge is there for a lot of us in the industry. I always say that there's 10 people in the room, 4 people are not pro-cannabis. The 6 people that are quiet. The 4 people that are not, are the loudest people on the table. You know what I mean? That's why they undervalue all the states in the sense of how many patients they're going to need, what's going to happen when it goes to rec, because the 6 people don't speak up. So it's how you're going to be perceived by the other 4 people at the table. So I think that's one big challenge that I see. The best thing that I see is, is rooms like this and being able to connect with people. When you do meet people that are like-minded, that are doing some great things, it not only inspires you, but it just encourages you to continue to drive and keep going. And it's just another validation of like, this is happening. So
Exactly.
keep going.
And thank you all for being here again. And thank you guys for sticking around. Considering we did say it was going to end at 4, but there was such interest in what's going on the business side. This whole thing, was supposed to be aimed at just educating the general public about the medical side. So I'm so grateful that you guys are interested in the business side. Next.
I guess the biggest challenge for me is really exercising patience.
Okay.
Understanding that in everything that we do, it doesn't come in the timeline in which you expect it to come.
Okay.
You go after a license and it takes 7-8 months to prepare to put in this application, and they tell you you'll learn in 90 days and you learn in 180. It just, and then you get the license and they give you 6 months to do it, and it actually takes 10 to 12. And just having patience with the process overall has really been the most difficult thing, specifically for us.
Well, also money, because don't you lose money?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because if you don't get it, you're just out of money.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing that people don't mention.
Even when you do get it and you have a timeline set based off of what the state tells you,
Okay.
you lose money because you have to adjust around real estate or other things that
Okay.
you need to keep. And so just having patience with every situation that goes along with how you're building this business, it never comes exactly the way you hope that it does. We get thrown a hurdle literally every time we do this, and it's about how you adjust to those hurdles. We've had states who have thrown things in a week before your application is due, and you just have to adjust. And the people that don't adjust don't win.
Like what? Don't win stuff like what?
Oh man.
We only got a couple minutes.
Having to resubmit your application after you've already submitted your application.
So we just had a process where they made it mandatory that the entire process was done online. So we built out our entire application and then had to pay somebody to do it, to put it online. A week and a half later, the state came back and said that they didn't like the process being done online, so you have now 2 weeks to resubmit it completely all by paper. And our applications run anywhere from 250 to 350 pages. They want 4 different versions of it, and you have to come in and submit that in person. And it's not in the state in which we're in or plan to be in the next 2 weeks. So, just being able to get over those hurdles and be patient is really like one of the big things for us. One of the more advantageous things about the industry is just seeing the growth. Honestly, when we started in 2014, it was so taboo that we took a big chance. Like most people don't understand that the industry's had such large growth
Yeah.
When we originally applied, we didn't know even if we got the license, if the entire process was going to be shut down. We took that chance. Whereas now, you can make a definitive statement that this is here to stay. We didn't
Right.
have those assurances when we started. And so just seeing
So
how.
yeah, 5 years ago was a whole different world.
It was a whole different world.
landscape, whole different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it's just seeing how the industry is growing and understanding that we have the opportunity to not only be a part of it, but to teach other people how to be a part of it is probably the best thing for me.
Thank you, Larry.
I keep mine short because Larry and I, we actually speak from the same box. Pretty much everything he's saying, I'm saying, and vice versa. But you know, challenges. Some of the challenges for me is again some of the hurdles that you face with local governments and local municipalities. After you win, you know, you still have to deal with the local side of things. And you may win, and then they decide they don't want you there anymore. So, you know, you got to go and win people over.
What does that mean? They decide they don't want you there?
Say we win in Ohio,
Okay.
but the city of Independence, where you have purchased property and real estate, or you've leased your space, they decide we don't want cannabis in our city, and that's by a local government who wasn't voted on by anybody. They kind of went down and signed themselves up, and now they're the governing officials in that particular municipality, and you got to make them happy. And so you got to get certain things done that you really don't have time or feel like doing, but you got to do it because you got to please the people who you're going to be working with and dealing with on a daily basis. So that's one small challenge, but again, I want to.
Sounds like a big challenge.
Yeah, but I mean, you get by it, and again, it's worth it. If you do it and you win, it's definitely worth it. Worth the effort for sure. But then the last thing I would say as far as a benefit is, you know, again, being able to have the opportunity to come, and it sounds cliche, because to us it sounds cliche because we always say this, but man, we enjoy speaking to people like you guys who are curious about the cannabis industry. I mean, like, I thoroughly enjoy doing this, and I do it nationwide, and I do it for free every time. I turn down everything. I don't want anything. I pay for my own hotel rooms, my own car rides, my flights, all I'll do it myself. Because it's important for me to feel like we're getting the word out to individuals who are interested. So that means to me, if only one of you guys in here actually jump into the industry somehow and you put together what you're trying to put together, then I feel like I'm winning. Even if I never hear from you again, you know, I hope that we can say something on this panel that empowers one of you guys or all of you guys to just not stop until you are actually in this industry. And not only are you in the industry, but you're showing other people how to get into the industry, because that is a true benefit, man. Like, I look up and I see guys I know here. It's unbelievable for me to be sitting where I'm sitting and knowing that Vesco might be up here next time. That's huge for me. I hope that happens for you, man. I really do. So, you know, you guys just keep on going, man. That's a huge benefit for us, and we enjoy it, man. So anytime you want us back, we'll come back again.
You rock. Thank you.
You know, the challenges side, there's an embarrassment of riches of anecdotes around the challenges, and I think every time, you know, I spend an hour not looking at my phone, I'm always curious to see what challenges have popped up in the meantime. But it's about uncertainty, and it's about you know, what was touched on is how difficult it is to plan from a business perspective when you have all the normal uncertainties of any business about, you know, customer demand, about competition, about, you know, just basic laws of supply and demand and taxes and everything you have to do. But then when you have the additional moving goalposts of the state legislation and the local municipal bodies, it's incredible. You know, from our perspective, we had a very public defeat in Norwalk in April of 2017. So I quit my job in February of 2017 to go all in on trying to acquire licenses for cultivation, processing, and dispensary. So we found a property. We spent, we put all of our eggs into that basket, purchased the property, had council on our side to pass a new resolution in order to allow us into town. Went through, the 2-hour town hall meeting with standing room only. Was called all sort of names. Half the room was for us, half the room was against us. And then in the end, we got the passage from council, but then the mayor, who said he would stay out of the way, stood up and vetoed it on a high vote ground. And so we found ourselves, 75 days out from application with no property.
Oh, wow.
And so, like all these things, they work out fantastically. We ended up in a much better situation in Gibsonburg down the street, and we're so grateful for it. But all along the way, it's those, hey, we're planning on hearing back on the license in September. We don't hear till November, and then we plan on hearing back on this, and then it's 6 months later, and then we assume. But again, it's all of these are opportunities as well, because it's a difficult playing field, and it all comes down to hard work on so much of it. You have to have a team that has the grit to be able to deal with that sort of uncertainty, and to be able to get through those, and be able to understand, okay, the goalpost moved, deep breath, let's point it that way, and let's kick it. And you move through those things, and then it all becomes worth it. The benefit from my perspective is then when you get reminded, you spend time putting out these fires, adjusting to these changes, but then you're reminded why you're doing this. When you have a patient tell you what an amazing impact you've had on their lives, and I have. One is a friend's mom who, go back 20 years ago, this is somebody that we would have been hiding from when we were consuming cannabis. And now this is somebody who can't go to her granddaughter's soccer games on the weekends if she doesn't have cannabis in order to treat the condition that she's suffering from right now. And so to be able to see those life-changing, and you have folks come in, we have the blessing of having the dispensary where we have patients we get to see on a daily basis. People come in and say, I haven't had a drink in 2 months, or hey, I threw Ambien out, or hey, I haven't touched an opiate in however long, or hey, I can get to sleep. I woke up this morning after I had 8 hours of sleep last night. What a luxury. And you get back, and that's what, gives you that conviction to go back and fight through those town hall meetings, and to take a deep breath when those changes happen. But those are kind of the challenges and opportunities from us.
Thank you, Erik. Before we go to Angel, let me just say that as a journalist, I love talking to people who are passionate about what they do. And all of these guys are clearly passionate, so we just give them a round of applause right there. And I love it. I don't care if I'm talking to a CEO, a janitor, a teacher, I don't care. When people are passionate, it just makes me so excited. Now, the next one is definitely passionate. We just met an hour ago, but we talked on the phone when I was putting the press release together, and so I don't know what he's going to say. But when I talked to him for putting a press release trying to market this event, I'm hoping that one of the benefits you mentioned will involve the 2 stories you shared with me, with your mom and the other patient. And I'm sure a challenge has to do with some business stuff, but okay, I'm gonna shut up now.
Thank you. And again, just like Donnie said, it's never too late to find your way into this business. I think one of the biggest challenges is to really take the time to self-reflect and figure out where you're gonna fit into the business though. Because a lot of times everybody just wants to jump head first, but if you're not built for the challenges or being able to be fluid at everything that gets thrown at you, maybe owning the dispensary isn't quite for you. If you like a more traditional course and something to be A, B, C all the way to Z, then an ancillary business that is going to support the industry in another way might be the route to go. But there's definitely a way to get into it from any of those aspects, and I think that's the number one thing, is really analyze yourself, figure out what's going to be the best approach for you to make an impact in this industry or find your way into the industry, whether it be on the actual hands-on marijuana side or on the other side of the business and support it. We spend $20,000 a year just in little stakes to hold our plants up. And there's somebody who's making that for me and 100 other, 5,000 other cultivators throughout the U.S. So, that guy's a great business model for success and not having his bank account shut down every other month. So those are some benefits to that. You know, so you definitely don't have to just look at it as a single approach and there's the bullseye and I need to make it right there. You can hit anywhere on that board and still do great. But yeah, no, I'd love to share the stories of what kind of helped me find my focus in this industry. And I think that's, you know, just like I think all of us, we're lucky to be where we are and what we're doing, because I have not worked probably a decade now. You know, every morning, I've always been told as an entrepreneur, find something you love to do and you're never going to work another day in your life. And I always thought I was doing that with every other business I've started, every other business I've been into. But it wasn't until I could actually do this that I haven't worked in forever now. I get to wake up every day and play with the plant that I love and help people out that I love find their healing or their recreation, you know, and that's a beautiful thing. My focus started in 2011, right after I had won one of the Cannabis Cups in Colorado. And at this time, I still didn't quite fully believe in its healing power. You know, I felt like we had these medical cards to hide behind and just smoke cannabis because I smoked like a chief back then. And I'm a big pothead, you know, and that's what I love to do, is get high. So the ability to grow the plant and still get high, you know, as soon as it presented itself, I was all in. And, you know,
Now you see why I enjoyed interviewing.
So when we, you know, even just on Friday, you know, the guy comes, give me a little something for my glaucoma, you know, a little something for my eyes, for my sleep, you know. But it was a joke. It really was a joke. And we had these cards, and everybody who was smoking weed at the time, we were just all a bunch of stoner potheads hiding behind this card to be able to get high legally. Shortly after winning the cup, I was doing this Meet the Grower. The dispensary that I worked for at that time was like, okay, you just won this cup, let's use this to get more people through our door. So they would pay me to go hang out, and back then there was no crazy regulations like there are now, so I was sitting there doing bong rips and playing video games and give some grow tips out to people who would show up at the dispensary, you know. It was my kissing babies and shaking hands days, is what I call it. This lady walks in with her husband, and he's in a wheelchair in a major accident. Every one of his vertebrae is pinned together, pins and needles. 78% of his skull was still plagued on the maximum amount of prescribed opiates. And these were both people that had never smoked or consumed marijuana, very straight edge, didn't even drink alcohol before his accident or anything like that. She had to care for her husband from wake to sleep like an infant. I'm talking bathe, clean, feed. They had 2 daughters as well, so she also had the task of taking care of their daughters at the same time she had to take care of her husband. Their last visit to their primary care physician, the doctor tells her, if that were my loved one, given what we know about opiates and the body's ability to, I guess, adapt to the pain relieving effects to it, you know, build up a tolerance, it's very possible your husband is in a torturous amount of pain and trapped as a prisoner in his own body with no way to communicate that to you. And he says, so if that were my loved one, I would explore all possibilities in trying to provide some sort of relief. So she went home that night, weighed in on it, and decided to get her husband a medical card to become his caregiver. Stumbled into the dispensary on one of the days that we're doing this Meet the Grower event. And when she told us that, at this time, again, we're still kind of feeling our way through. You know, there was edibles and all these different things. Dosages were all over the board. You eat one thing today and you were perfectly fine. Next time you tried it, you were out for 2 days. So she needed somebody to guide her. And I at that time was very experimental with all of my products. So, you know, it was like, I know this puts me out for 2 days whenever I try one. Let's give him one of those. And if he doesn't respond well to that, try some of this. Loaded her up with a basket of goodies. She takes off. And then I felt a little good that I was able to share some knowledge with her. I didn't work in the dispensary on the regular, but I was hearing feedback from the people and the bud tenders at the dispensary that she continued to come back and that it was working for her to the extent I had no idea. 2 or 3 months later, I'm there doing the Meet the Grower situation again, getting paid to take bong rips and play video games. And this guy walks in, and he walks in with a walker, assisted by a walker. And I'm looking at him, I couldn't quite place it, and man, that guy looks really familiar. Behind him walks his wife, and then it hits me like brick in the face, like whoa. There's no way. And he's able to walk in on his own 2 feet, sit down and have a conversation with me. She bursts into tears, comes up and says, this is the guy I was telling you about. He's able to walk up and tell me, he says, apparently we've met before, but I've never met you. He says, but I want to thank you because you've given me some dignity, you've given me some of my life back. And now don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a miracle all of a sudden he's cured. You know, he's still assisted by a walker, very slow to speak. But the fact that he's able to walk in and know that I'm there and have a conversation with me and tell me that he's now able to sit at the dinner table with his 2 daughters and help them with their homework again. And thank me for that. At that point, I was like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. There's a lot more behind this than what we give credit for. And that just redirected my whole focus in life. And that was my calling. Shortly after that, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. They gave her 3 to 9 months to live. At this time, there wasn't as much information out there as to THC's possible anti-tumorous effects or anti-cancerous effects, but I knew she was going to be going through chemotherapy and radiation. And number one cause of wasting from the chemotherapy is the inability to get the proper amount of nutrition into your body. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to give you some stuff that's going to make you hungry. And, you know, we started dosing her out in a sense. This is not a smoker, so I had to make her tea. We would make tea, and she would take the tea, and sure enough, she kept her appetite up. The radiation was supposed to make her go bald. The cellular repair aspect, neuro-regenerative, correct? You can plug in any time, Tippy, or Dr. Nelson. And, but basically, the cellular repair ability that comes along with the cannabinoids, she never went bald. She never burned. She's still here to this day. We're talking over a decade.
Wow.
Every time we go back to the doctors, they would pat themselves on the back and say, whatever we're doing is working. Let's just keep this up, you know. Over the time that she's going through her traditional treatments, we learn more about cannabis possibly being a lot more beneficial to people with cancer. So we up the amount of cannabis going into her body. Met some really cool people from the Phoenix Tears Foundation who guided me and taught me a little bit more about treating with cannabis oil and or complementing her current traditional treatments with cannabis oil. And we did that. And that's when I realized, as a grower, I have a moral obligation and responsibility to the people who are going to be receiving this product. I can no longer just blindly go into a grocery store and say, I have mites, what do you recommend? Just throw this at them, you know, because that poison that I'm putting on those plants is now going to my mother. And on top of that, you know, just like anybody will tell you, the patients that we bring into our dispensaries, they become part of your family. They become your friends. You know, you hear the stories of the people coming in and that you're helping and whose lives you're having a direct impact on. These are your nearest community members, you know. So if I'm not caring about what I'm putting on this plant and the way I'm growing this plant, then I'm not caring about them and I'm not doing a justice to what we're supposed to be out here doing. So find your passion, find the way that you can complement this industry, whether it be giving rides to people who need to get to the dispensary so they can get their medicine, or whether it be growing an actual plant. It's out there.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I would like to say that I would like to take all of the credit for bringing these guys here. I would, I was going to say, because they're awesome. But unfortunately, okay, not unfortunately, we have Randy here. And we've got Lenny here who put on this event. And I'm just happy that you guys came to share. So now we're going to open up for questions. And the first one is in the gentleman in the blue shirt.
Legality of cannabis.
Can you introduce yourself, please?
Pardon?
Introduce yourself.
Oh, Phil Morris. Cannabis legality according to federal law.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's illegal. I mean, it's a Schedule 1 narcotics, so we are large scale Schedule 1 trackers. It's black and white still. The law hasn't caught up to, you know, like all change like that, pressure builds, and then you have a step function change, so it's tough to know when the timing is, but yeah, no, it's black and white, it's federally illegal. Illegal. Yes.
Okay. The young lady in the green. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. So I am Arlene Ryder, cannabis nurse. I was up on the panel earlier. we did not have a chance to discuss this, Angel, while we were on the panel together earlier, but I definitely wanted to bring this up now that we're talking about your experience in terms of growing. I feel like you would be the perfect person to speak on this. I am all about leveraging experiences. As a nurse, I've been able to see a niche where there's a void and there's a perfect opportunity for me to jump into this market and really create my own lane. And so with that, I've noticed some potholes along the way. And one of those things has been the advent of the syndrome that is cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
CHS, okay. Very interesting thing. So recently, as recent as say, between 2004 and 2014, we're starting to see patients that are medical cannabis patients that are presenting to the emergency department with the cyclical vomiting syndrome. And so obviously this is a wonderful opportunity for the media, for the government to say, oh, look at this, the cannabis is not as, the marijuana, it's not as healthy as we originally thought it was. We told y'all it wasn't safe, right?
Right.
Right. And so upon my research, I realized that there may have been some interesting growth practices that have led to this cyclical vomiting. So if you're not familiar, what this means is basically people who smoke weed on a regular basis are starting to become very, very ill, and they vomit regularly around the clock. They can time it like clockwork, and they're blaming the weed for it. And so what I have found in my research as I'm teaching at the Cleveland School of Cannabis and in other places consulting with patients is that it may have something to do with the neem oil that a lot of growers use. Are you able to?
Yeah, exactly. No, now I know what you're talking about. I didn't know the technical term, but I've heard about the syndrome where people are getting sick from the marijuana. And yeah, no, exactly. It's acidic poisoning, which is the active ingredient in neem oil. And overexposure to it will cause the exact same symptoms that they're calling the symptoms that you get from the cannabis. So exactly to the point that I was speaking of exactly, when the grower doesn't take the time to research what it is they're spraying on this plant, and if they don't do it in the proper manners, then that's the kind of stuff that can happen. They're just blindly using whatever is going to control. And then also it comes down to the reputation of the company who's going to be growing, because I've grown for companies that said, nope, doesn't matter. That's $500,000 worth of a harvest there. I don't care if you're suggesting that we scrap it all or, remediate it all. That's too much money to lose. We're not going to do that. At that point, it's time for me to part ways with that company because they're more dollar-driven than patient-driven. But that's why it's very important to find a company that you trust to produce your medicine, a grower that you trust, or to grow your own medicine until you figure out what's going on and get that trial and error of a trusted source to be able to provide your medicine.
Thank you. You have a question, Erik?
Yes, my name is Diane Danger, and I'm plant science technology major. I have a question for Mr. Cruz. What I want to ask is, what is the difference, or is there a difference, of the genus and the species of medical marijuana compared to recreational marijuana?
None at all.
None at all?
Exactly. No, it is simply a tax bracket, or at least in Colorado.
Okay.
The species of marijuana, the strains that we grow for medical purposes, are the same ones that we grow for recreational purposes. The only thing that's different is the color that's hanging on them that is tagged for seed to sale tracking. Because this will get taxed at an excise tax for recreational sales, and the other one will get taxed at a standard sales tax for medical sales. Other than that, the exact same thing.
Donnie?
Let me ask something real quick. It kind of goes with both of you guys' questions with the differences between medical marijuana and recreational, and then as far as the different types of sprays and things that people are using, a lot of that comes down to the requirements by the states too. Each state has different regulations, and Nevada happens to be one of the most heavily regulated states, where if you have a certain level of pesticides or fertilizers or any type of thing that may be poisonous, you will fail that will never happen in Nevada. They're going to fail, and you can't take that to market. Okay. So with that being stated, at some point you'll probably see a change. The cultivators here will probably see a change in what Ohio deems necessary for you to get a product out to market, because it is medicine. And so that medicine needs to be tested correctly, and it needs to be regulated the right way. And with that said, it's about, patient safety. And so don't be surprised if you start seeing, small changes here or there, and the cultivators being upset about this or about that when they have to change some
In
of
the months to come?
Yeah, if you got patients being sick, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You'll see some changes like that come
The
about.
neem oil, though, is considered organic, which is the interesting part.
Yeah, you're just going to find if it's something that's causing patients to get sick, they're going to stick something out there that's going to, or add something to the regulations that's going to say, hey, you can only use a certain level, or you can only have a certain level present in your, with your particular product. It's going to happen eventually.
Larry, you weighing in?
No, and to speak specifically to that, they actually just got rid of the ability for us to be able to use that in the bottle.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it doesn't matter if it's organic or if it's not.
Nice.
In regards to the medical cannabis versus recreational, as Angel said, it's exactly the same. As we use it, though, we look at the cannabinoids that are in it to use for specific illnesses as opposed to recreation. That's really the only difference, but you're growing the same thing.
The difference of the cannabinoids?
Cannabinoids, yes.
Cannabinoids.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions? More questions? The gentleman right here. Can you give me your name?
Hi, my name is Tristan. What's a good path for associated industries and exploring the legalities of what you'd be entering into, affiliated businesses and such?
That was a little, can you expound a little bit, makes it a little narrow question?
Yeah, well, I can.
Okay, never mind.
Technically, your law, anybody that does business with us in any way is breaking the law. And so every time, federally. So when we pay our electric bill, if they cash that check, that is money laundering. And so anybody that transacts with us by the letter of the law is breaking it. However, First Energy is probably not that worried about it. But then when you become specialized, a lot of times it's as simple as I can tell you when on the insurance side, the name CanAssure did not help us at banks. It helped us in the marketplace, but it didn't help us with checking accounts. There are a little advice if you're going to have a cannabis business. Don't have the word buds with a Z in it. Don't have anything. Anything. Have it be an acronym and have that, and then you can go out separately. And so you have to be thoughtful about that, because that's the trip up is if you have a bank manager that's scouring through to make sure that they have zero cannabis related accounts. And so even if you're providing insurance, even if you're selling this, if you're Canna signs, they'll kick you out. If you are C signs, business as usual. And so there's a certain amount of risk that you have to take if you're dealing with this business, but you can be smart about it and you can fly under the radar.
I'm more referring to the state laws. And
now the state,
like the licensings and how that works with the fringe businesses, because
there's no issue there. The state did
cover a lot of the stuff.
Oh, the state, we have the backing. That's what we do have, is we have the full backing of the state. And so the state, we're legal, and we will fight vigorously, and the industry will band together. That's the good thing. You see, everybody's pulling this rope together. And so anything that has to do with patient access, we'll fight vigorously. We have the backing of the state, of Columbus. It's when you dive into the federal realm that you have issues.
And so you have to remember something. The state, like you said, anybody who's the electric company or the water company or whatever, they're partnering with us, well, we pay a bunch of taxes to the state too. And so they're partnering with us too. So they can't take the money from us if they're not willing to back us. You know what I mean? So federally, they're saying no, but the state, the local governments are saying yes. And so you do have a little bit of, you got a lot of support behind you, to be honest with you. And for you, we would suggest that if you're looking at ancillary services, make sure that you are doing exactly what the state is deeming you do in order to handle cannabis legally. So that means you have to have a card, then get that card for sure. And anybody who you're
What kind
dealing
of
with, medical card.
Oh, okay.
If you're dealing in cannabis in Ohio right now, you have to have a medical card. I would also suggest anybody for your services that you're providing, if you're going to be, again, providing them a service that's dealing with cannabis, you know, make sure that they have a card as well until it goes adult use or something like that. So just protect yourself and protect your, you know, whatever your business is.
Question?
I'll try to say it the best way I can. Have you seen a fair amount of...
You didn't introduce yourself.
Oh, excuse me, Rebecca, good to see you.
Hey, Rebecca.
I've probably seen a couple of you at other talks. Have you seen a fair amount of individuals like the retired vets and especially those with disabilities working in the business?
Yes, you know, that's the whole, and I think that's one of the biggest things that we get to see being on the non-patient side, right? So a lot of these guys get an opportunity to connect directly with patients because they're providing that direct product. You know, we're on the side where we're educating people to be able to actually get the jobs actually in the marketplace that actually are working with these businesses. Like we have a bunch of our students and graduates that work with Standard Wellness. A lot of the other cannabis businesses that you've seen and interacted with today, we have students that are working there. One big thing that we looked at is said, how do we break the barrier to education? And we know that the biggest barrier to education has always been finance. It always will be and continue that. So understanding the federal legalization of cannabis doesn't allow us as an entity, an educational entity, to access federal funding. We decided to basically create our own grant pool to be able to provide more access to education that we fund and underwrite ourselves as a company. And we provide a minority grant, we provide a veterans grant, a resilience grant. And the resilience grant was specifically developed because we knew that there were so many families that have been affected in a negative way due to the fact of the legalization of the cannabis industry. And we wanted to provide those families that are either directly or indirectly, because it might not have been specifically, you know, your parent or something directly in your household that was taken away, but when you take away resources for households over years and decades, the domino effect that pulls on that family is huge. And that's what, what we're seeing. A lot of our cities, a lot of our neighborhoods, a lot of our communities are coming out of, the prohibition of what's going on in cannabis and how many families it's ruined. So, we have, and it's been a great thing to see people be able to transition, their life, not only from a patient standpoint, because a lot of our veterans are, patients as well, and then being able to also create, economic stability and opportunities for themselves. So, for us, that's what's great for us to be able to see someone that is able to come from multiple different backgrounds and have an opportunity to get themselves in the industry, build relationships, especially, when you're thinking about wanting to grow in the industry, building relationships with these great organizations and proving yourself to say you're a person they should continue to invest in and being able to grow with them, so that's one thing we've been able to say.
Thank you. Right here, with a question? Can you introduce yourself?
I would just like to say I'm a little nervous and I know you do, so I do apologize for any hiccups. But I'd like to say, my name is Marlena Gavel, and I'd like to say, Kevin, you are just on the money on it. I am a new associate for the CSE, and I am on the brink of being able to get out of an industry that sells tobacco product, and I am totally against tobacco. I see people come in every day and they're green and they ask for more tobacco product, and it hurts me to sell them to my regular customers on a daily basis. But I must say that it's incredible to be able to meet all of you gentlemen and have all your inspiration to guide me. And I just want to say thank you so, so much to help me to make sure that I'm doing the right thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions? Right here? I'll take mine. Okay.
Tyrone Russell, Cleveland School of Cannabis. I just have a question. You talked about banking. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the dangers of not being able to bank and the dangers of a cash business, a cash-only business such as the cannabis industry right now for the most part.
Well, I'll start. Let me start by saying it is the worst thing in the world when you go to the bank and you go to make a deposit or withdrawal, and they say, you have to see my manager. And I mean, it's awful. So right now, it's a struggle that we all have to deal with. We're fortunate in the effects that we're partnered with large companies that have the influence to be able to, for the most part, kind of shelter us where they have older banking relationships, and we have a program where we can teach small banks how to take on cannabis clients. And so, again, even that aspect, more banks aren't doing it because they're not educated on how to do it. And so we're trying to bring those types of things into this industry. Now, with that said, we're not immune to the situation. I mean, I'll tell you all this, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had every account and all of our business accounts closed. Just off of my name being out there and linked to being a cannabis advocate. They had no reason to do so other than that. And so you run the risk when you get into this industry of those types of things. It just happens.
And that's
unfortunately.
that's like the 4th or 5th bank.
Yeah, literally.
I heard that a lot. They're not going to do it.
I've run the realm, and he's run the spectrum of large banks. You know what I'm saying?
Bank now,
If anybody has some help.
Even at your school, when I did the story at the School of Cannabis, Austin said, you can talk to Kevin and some other people, but I'm just trying to limit my name as much as possible with cannabis, just until things change, Right,
Absolutely.
I'm just curious though, I know I'm supposed to be all audience right now, just real quickly. I'm not asking you guys to be fortune tellers or anything, but if you had to guess when things might change on the line with the federal level, you think a couple years or what with banking? Or?
To me, it has to do with our next presidential election.
Okay.
In all honesty.
Did you see the news? They had of the bipartisans of the Democrats and the Republicans were actually meeting that they said that the rules are a mess.
Yes.
Right now.
Everybody agrees that the rules are a mess. This isn't a political, debate or anything like that. But Obama opened the door for this, and none of the large banks jumped through the door.
Right.
And so, that's where the education kind of came in.
Yeah.
They're trying to push someone to be the first major bank to do this, because everybody knows that it's a mess, and everybody knows that there's a risk there. And so we'll see what happens. I think, obviously the presidential election, who becomes president and how much they advocate for a change will 100% determine how long it takes.
Do you agree, Erik?
Yeah, and I just wanted to put one word of advice in around banking and to frame it a little bit. The only thing you don't do is just don't lie. The only way you can get in trouble is if you say anything fraudulent on your application. I've been kicked out of probably 12 banks over the past 6 years, and I've never gotten in trouble for any one of them. Every single one, they don't even say why. They won't even, because they don't want to admit that they were banking you. Okay, and so so as long as every single thing that you say is true, then.
What do you mean by that, kicked out? They just close your account all of a
Now
sudden?
there are certain accounts, like if you go on to Capital One online, there's a check box that says, are you or are your customers or your customers' customers marijuana producers?
I see.
Okay, hit close, don't bother with that one.
Okay.
If they come out and ask you, is this a marijuana business? Yes, it was nice talking to you, get up and leave. If they ask you, what kind of business are you in? Healthcare.
Okay.
And then be comfortable, or horticulture, or medical products, or anything. It's be comfortable with silence and say, that's it, and here's the name of the business. Open your check. As long as you have absolutely nothing that you have said, there is nothing that you're doing wrong. And then if they choose, you won't get yourself in trouble. So that's it. Don't lie and say, if they say, is it a marijuana business? The answer is yes.
Right.
If you say no, that's where you get yourself in trouble.
Marcia, can I chime in on this issue? My advice to you is stop using the ATM. Pull in, park, walk into your bank. Make sure that bank manager knows who you are. Start to establish a relationship with that bank manager as you're progressing. Make it hard for them to look you in the eye and tell you no. Because what they'll do for you once they've established that relationship with you is different from the person that they never met, that they don't know, and they don't feel like they have a commitment to.
Thank you. And Devorah didn't say who she is unless you were here earlier this morning, but she is a co-owner of Lakewood Medical Clinic and Midwest Medical Clinic.
Do you have anything about starting your own crypto?
You didn't give it name.
Joe Blow.
think about starting a cryptocurrency and offshore bank?
Yeah, but we have enough problems. We don't need things like those.
Understand, lady next.
I just want to say, my name's Wendy Johnson, and we do on the chamber have institutional banking.
Chamber?
The Ohio Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, one of the co-sponsors of this event.
Yes.
We do have a bank that is willing to do business with you. It is Right Pat Credit Union out of Dayton. There is a 45-page application to open an account there. If you so choose to fill that out, though, they are doing business with cultivators, processors, and businesses with the word cannabis in it. Right Pat credit unions. Most credit unions, CMEs, are, not wrapped up in the federal insurance of your money. So most CMEs, like Dr. Moore said, establish a relationship with them. Don't go in and say, listen, I have a cannabis business, I want to open a bank account. Sit down, have a meeting with them, call it horticulture, call it, medicine, call it pharmaceuticals, whatever. And be honest. And they're going to tell you right out of the gate if they're going to do business with you or not. But credit unions, private credit unions, CMEs, Right Pat Air Force Base are doing.
Question in the back? Where?
Hi, my name is Tanya. I just have a quick question for the panel and anyone else that is able to chime in. I know that there's a lot of discussion in regards to the federal government and the illegal part of the cannabis and the industry. Has there been any discussion, concern, rumors, talk, or anything as it relates to the federal government actually taking over the cannabis industry? Thank you.
The federal government is a governing body that provides laws to provide safety, access, information, and governance to all of the industries that are here. So taking over, that brings such a negative connotation in the sense that it's taking something away from people. The federal government getting involved in the cannabis industry and being a part of it and being an advocate for it and supporting it is important. When we're talking about simple thing as banking, this industry deserves the right to have access to all of the resources that our government provides to all the other businesses that are available. Now, when it comes to how do we go ahead and protect ourselves to make sure that this industry becomes what we want it to be, it comes back down to some of the basics of, I think, from any initiative or anything that we want to change. It's for people to get involved, get educated, and speak up. We talk so much about the federal government, but what's going on everything, in most situations, the most important thing is your city council. Think about the things, you get a license and then the city council doesn't want the cultivation site there, the dispensary there. But the state went ahead and said yes. So getting involved in your local politics, your state politics, what's going on, and making sure that wave continues and that the federal government and all the representatives that go and work at the federal government understand what we want as a community for cannabis is what's going to basically allow us to carve the path that we want to see from it. So there's no way to be able to go ahead and say what the federal government, how involved they're going to be, but it's important that we do have the support of the government because our businesses need that and the community needs that, the patients needs that. Things that we're talking about in the sense of the regulation, FDA, all those things. We want to make sure that this thing is here to stay and there is some benefits to that. But again, we have to make sure our job as citizens is to check the federal government and making sure that we're making our voice heard and making sure the things that are coming through, the bills that are going through, the things that are being written, that we're challenging them in a way that's going to be beneficial to the community itself and what we want to see.
But it needs to be on schedule, and we've got to get it on schedule.
Well, I think that to take what he's saying a little bit further, the government's going to stay where it is until we force them into making a decision. We do that every time another state decides to become medical.
Right.
We do that every time another state decides to become recreational. They have to pay attention to those things. And they know how much money is flowing through this industry. They know because they get taxes from us at a ridiculously high rate. So they understand from their perspective, one of the benefits of this industry, but they're gonna hold tight. What was it, a year or two ago, where they actually got it to vote to get it down a schedule, and it didn't pass, obviously, but those things are starting to happen. So it starts with people like us and people like you all who continue to advocate for this industry and the benefits of this industry overall. And until we continue to band together to get more people, they're going to continue to hold.
Thank you. I see that's 3 more questions. 1, 2, 3. Your young lady? Either one.
My name is DJ, and I work with FDA regulations, and I want to know, having the benefit of hindsight, which state is the easiest state to do business in terms of bringing the best benefit for people and business? And that I ask that because if you're getting into the business and you're studying, which state would you follow? Which state would you learn from? Because Ohio's in the process.
Because we're so new.
Yeah, my second question is, has the FDA decision on cannabis, has that affected your advertising and your product labeling?
Question.
Oh, man.
I'll take the first one. I'll let Donnie take the second one. So from our perspective, I guess it's 2 different. Your first question is actually 2 different, and there's 2 different answers. From a model standpoint, in hindsight, the state that's done it the best to me, in regards to the people overall recreationally, is Nevada. They fast-tracked everything. They saw what was going on, and they took a stance of, okay, we're gonna push this forward as far as we possibly can, and got it to recreational. They have a sound system of the difference between recreational and medical. It's working the best out of anyone that we've seen in the entire country.
But that's Vegas, where I used to live.
Vegas.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So you also mentioned Maryland.
I was going to say, from a medical perspective, Maryland is the largest and the biggest thriving market right now. They seem to have the best regulations and best medical process today.
Okay, thank you. Yes, right here. Name, please.
Name, Jessie. I'm appreciating the statements made about shame and stigma. I've been a user for 30 years, but I've been a mental health therapist for 20 years. So I bet you can imagine that I don't talk a lot about my use in public until now, with a card. So we're thinking about shame. Shame is a disconnector. It takes us away from others, correct? According to Brene Brown, we're lonelier than we've ever been. As a therapist for 20 years, anxiety and depression are #1, hello. So I've had to learn to use in a way that supports me. Last piece I want to add to this is the city we live in. I think there's more bars, churches, and 12-step groups than any other city in Cleveland. Is that correct? Probably. Okay. So is there a place, an in-between place, where people like me who haven't had a cigarette in 4 weeks, that we can go, or people like my clients, I as a practitioner, can help them use safely, therapeutically, not just at home or in their car.
Yeah, I think those will be, there are a lot of hurdles ahead, a lot of, maturing the industry, and social use location is going to be one of the things that it comes over time. You nailed on the underlying anxiety, insomnia, and depression are the common threads of what a lot of patients are seeking relief from related to the qualifying conditions. And so, just like it's someday health insurance will cover cannabis as medicine. Someday, the VA will get out of their own way and be supportive of this. Someday you'll have social use. Someday you'll have, the drop of that shame and stigma. I just think it takes time.
I'm curious about finding questions to the legality of that place, though. That meeting place, that den, that.
Well, currently, everybody would have to be, patients. And so you can be wherever you want if you're all patients, as long as it's not public. So like you said, it's kind of going away from what you're saying. But what we like to do is put a measurable on top of a question like this. And I say, again, in Nevada, they have consumption lounges now where you can
And that just started, right?
Yeah,
How long ago?
yeah, maybe the last 4 months, 4 or 5 months maybe. So just to kind of give you a...
And they're expanding.
Yeah, they are. You know, but just to give you a time frame for something like that, because it seems like that may be what you're looking for. That happened, like Larry said, Nevada fast-tracked the situation that they have now. They went from being medical to us having a medical license, and then all of a sudden, they turned into recreational. We were surprised. But after recreational, that program went well. The very next step was allowing consumption lounges, which are just now coming on.
So you have to be recreational to get to the consumption lounge.
There you go. That seems to be the time frame.
Thank you. We're running out of time. We have a question over here.
Yeah, so a few things. So
A few.
So the first thing is, it's been my experience as a business owner that banks are really wanting to work with us. But like they said, you just have to be smart about what you say.
Thank you. You just have to be smart about what you say. So as I was opening my account, they understood that I was a nurse and I was in herbalism and I was in holistic herbalism. However, they were careful even about the questions that they asked me. What is it that you provide? Education. That's fine. Here's your banking account, right? So you just kind of have to be careful, just be smart about that. The second thing is, when we talked about the state that kind of got it right, I lean towards Vermont, and I'm curious about what you guys think about Vermont, just because in my research it seems that Vermont got it right, only because they kind of took the business side out of it. They said, hey, we'll legalize it, you guys do what you want with it, but you can't sell it, fine. I'll sell a t-shirt business, give the weed for free, so people are very smart about that sort of thing. And then the third thing is, like you said, the difference between public and private. So you were talking, somebody asked about spaces, safe spaces. So you have to understand that as a nurse, 4 things, I lied, 4 things, but I'm gonna be very quick. So as a nurse, I have a nursing license. The reason that I have a nursing license is not to protect me. It is to protect the public from my malpractice, right? So if you wanted to do something that is against the law publicly, you may want to consider your options in terms of how you can do that on the private side. Now, I'm not trying to give any advice on how to do that. That's, up to you to connect those dots and whatever else. But I will say that those safe spaces do exist. You just have to know kind of where they are, and they are not public spaces, they are private spaces. And that looks more like a membership kind of situation, where you buy a membership and you can come into a space, you get the information you need, you may have access to some product, and you have a safe space where you can then consume. Now to get to my question.
Oh, I was wondering. I was wondering about our panel here.
My question, and this is selfish. I would like to know stocks. Is there a stock, a publicly traded stock that you guys have your eyes on that I need to be investing in like right now? That's what I need.
That's a great question there.
I was gonna say talk to us afterwards. We're biased. I mean, we're a part of 3 publicly traded companies that we believe one has already been incredibly successful, and the other 2 we believe are going to get to that mark. So that's a conversation that we can have later.
We most certainly will.
He is not giving any advice.
We are not soliciting investors or anything of that nature. In regards to your comment about Vermont, I want to touch on that. My problem with Vermont for us is I like the idea, but from a business perspective, I think what all of us want is a free market. What we want is a regulated free market to be able, so that the best people with the best products, the best marketing, and the most help win. That kind of, it's shielding what the industry people actually are looking for. So yes, it's a creative way to get the licensing out there, but for us, we look at states that the more heavily regulated it is, the more I want it. Because I want the straight line of what you're asking us to accomplish. So I just don't believe that Vermont does that for us.
More regulations.
The more regulations for us, the better for us and for you all. So.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I just want to say thank you all for coming today. And before you all leave, we got Lenny Bear. I need you to come up here. And I want you all also to please fill out your questionnaires, survey. We would love some feedback. This is the first time event. Hope to do many more. Lenny Berry, come. Mr. Behind the Scenes.
Woo, Lenny!
We're putting all together. Who wasn't on the program? Don't know how to act right. Can we first, before we talk to Mr. Lenny, can we first give a big round of applause to Kevin, Larry, Donnie, Erik, and Angel. You guys were amazing. Thank you. I appreciate you. Randy? Who else will come up?
First of all, I want to applaud you for just coming out and supporting the event. The event wouldn't be anything without your support. Secondly, I'd like to applaud the speakers and vendors who participated, the moderators, everyone who helped me behind the scenes. As they tell you, I'm a very low-key guy, so you didn't see my name on any of the brochures or the website or anything because it wasn't about me. It was about the people. So that's why we're here. Thank you for coming out. And
Ronnie, who I said Randy,
have anything to say. But we're going to do a raffle for the people who bought tickets for the raffle. So we're going to pull those names too. And thank you for meeting you.
A big thank you to all of our generous sponsors and our vendors and patient advocates, our volunteers, our staff. I'm so thankful that everybody came out. You know, our main goal for this was to pretty much educate and re-educate, and I think we kind of hit that goal. I'm just so appreciative of everyone being here. I didn't really want to come and talk. My main thing was to bring Lenny on, and
he got upset.
and then he got upset and threw me on. So I just want to thank Lakewood Medical Clinic, Dr. Nelson and Lenny for putting this on and giving me the opportunity to coordinate this and bringing so many people on board that we knew who are, you know, heavy hitters in this industry like these fellas here. Our goal was to not only educate but to collaborate with a lot of other businesses in Cleveland and to continue to connect the cannabis community and break the stigma. Moving forward, I'm looking forward to growing the partnerships and collaborating with many more people and be on the lookout for more events coming up. And with that being said, I just want to thank everyone.
Coming in, yeah, flex, I just wanna win, yeah, LABB who we running with, yeah.
Sweet dreams, I'm